So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited to talk with you about how to write without jargon. My name is Namav Shalom. I'm a graduate fellowship advisor, and I'm also a PhD candidate in the Graduate School of Education. And I'm joined here with Tyler and Ellen, who I think can introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Carson, as Nama said. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies and also a fellowship advisor here at GradFund.
And hi, my name is Ellen. I'm a PhD candidate at the School of Planning and Public Policy and a fellowship advisor as well.
So today, as we said, we're going to be talking about writing without jargon, and we're going to have some activities along the way. So how is this going to look? Just a second, we're waiting on. So we're going to talk a little bit, just doing a very brief overview of application components, what kind of things you can expect. And then we're going to be talking about understanding and identifying jargon. You're going to have an activity in there, but then you're going to have another activity about writing accessibly. So basically putting it into practice. We're going to wrap up with tips, tricks, and takeaways, and then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. And also along the way, if you have questions, if you have things you want to say, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We will get to them either as you ask them in the chat or verbally, or we'll get to them in the Q&A. So looking forward to it. Also just one more quick thing is that we've been asked by the higher ups in general to get everyone to do a survey. So Tyler, I believe, just dropped it in the chat. And so please fill this out. You can fill it out now, you can fill it out in the middle, you can fill it out at the end. We just don't want to forget, and it would really help us here at GradFund if you just complete a little survey of about your experiences. Okay, so as a general overview, applications are all going to look a little bit different, but typically they will have you submit a research statement, a personal statement, and then some other things like transcripts, CVs, letter of recommendation, and when applicable, sometimes you'll submit a budget. So the key things to think about are jargon shows up in a lot of places. Today we're going to be focusing on examples from the research statement, which is, I think, a place where jargon shows up a lot because, you know, we're very used to talking in the specialized language of our own fields, but it can also show up in some other areas as well. So just to get us started, we're going to do an activity, I believe. Let's just shift forward to it. So we're going to talk about understanding and identifying jargon. And the first thing is just learning to notice it. So we're going to start off with an activity. We are going to drop a link in the chat, which is going to have a few short application essays or little segments from essays. So in your group, first of all, start by introducing yourselves to your group members. What's your name? What do you do? I don't know, maybe something cool about your research. And then work together to discuss these application essays. Think about, is the paragraph that you read clear overall? Why or why not? And are there any things that you didn't understand? And if you didn't understand them, why do you think you didn't understand them? So think about like how they're writing, what's the language, and what could, you know, what do you notice about this? And yeah, we'll be putting you into breakout rooms and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes, give or take. For those of you who are still in the main room, are you having any trouble joining your breakout rooms? In microbiology and you apply for an award that's being reviewed by microbiologists, then you can use some more of that specialized language, but still they might be experts in the broader field, but they probably won't be experts in the very specific subfield that you're in. So this is a situation where you need to really think carefully about what words are super well known to your reviewers and what words are actually just well known to you or your research group. I've definitely come across this problem where I wrote something once and I used some words that I thought were extremely well known, and my advisor said, no, like they're basically just words that we use a lot in our research team, and the research teams that we collaborate with use those words a lot, but people in the broader field don't actually know these words or don't use them very often or define them perhaps differently than we do. So this is a key question of like, who are your reviewers and what can you expect that they will be extremely comfortable with? But if you don't define these specialized words, whatever you don't define, reviewers won't understand, and they don't have time. They're not going to go look things up. If they kind of understand it, they are not gonna not going to delve into it. If they understand it, but with a very different meaning or different interpretation, they're going to think about it differently. So we're going to talk a little bit later when we get to like general tips about which words to use and which words to not use, or like how to think through whether to include a jargony word or not. But for now, like this is kind of a general primer. So let's, this is an interactive thing. So let's try to put it into practice. We're gonna go back into groups and work on something that I'm hoping will be very fun, very entertaining now that you know each other a little bit. There are two options. So one of them, so you're doing your research, try to write a short paragraph. Of course, we only have 15 minutes, so you don't have to make it perfect, you don't have to make it long, but a short paragraph that explains your research using only the 1,000 most frequently words used in English. So that's, not a lot of the words that you would typically use. And the other option is try to write a short paragraph that explains your research, but using only 1 or 2 syllable words. So they don't have to be super common, but they also can't be super long. And just think about how is this experience? Are you managing to convey your ideas in some way, or are there things that you just really can't convey? And what are those things? So we're going to put you back into research groups. We're going to put you back into breakout groups. And you're going to be doing this for your own research, but do try to consult with the other people in your group, especially if you're thinking about what to write. And if you have time, share with your group, but also think about sharing with the whole group later when we come back. So it doesn't have to be long. The idea is for it to be like funny and entertaining, but also a way to learn about how we can make our work clear in ways that are very different from how we write for, say, our thesis or for journal articles. So the breakout rooms are back open, and see you all soon. There are terms that it makes sense to use. So there might be a specialized term that is really central to your work. And in that case, it can be useful. I knew someone many years ago who was in a physics class for non-physics majors. And the teacher was so nervous that the students would be afraid of some words that instead of just defining the words as simple as, say, frequency, the teacher would like just say the definition every single time. And it gets tiresome. Like maybe there is a word that makes sense. So I would say if you're going to use, if a word is really central to your work, you're going to use it many times. Just make sure you, when you first introduce it, you define it really clearly. And try to limit it to 1 to 2 new terms and make sure they're necessary. So if there's a really fancy term or a really specialized term that you're using, but you only actually need to bring it up once, maybe you don't actually need to bring it up. Can you just put in the definition, or can you just describe what it is that you're saying? But on the other hand, if you're going to use a term that, like, if you're going to use a term many times, it's going to come up over and over and over again, then that's a really central term. You should define it. It will make things easier, and it will also make things more specific and clear. And so in those situations, you should define it. So basically, think about both who your audience is. So what are words that they won't understand? And then if you're trying to develop new words, think about, are they necessary? And if they are, define them up front, and then you can use them. So one thing to kind of so first I said, don't use jargon. Then I said, sometimes you can use jargon. And then now I want to say, each time you define a new term, readers will attend to that. They'll assume that it's really central and important. So if you define terms that don't actually come up very many times, or they're not really central to your argument, your readers are going to end up being confused, because they're going to say, hey, wait, like you defined that term, that's really important, I should think about this. This is going to be something that's going to come up more. And if it doesn't, they're going to constantly keep looking for it. And then on the other hand, if you define too many new terms, the reviewers won't know what to focus on. So try to use jargon sparingly and wisely. So how much to use? These are kind of general tips. Like, what does sparingly mean? So as we've mentioned, and as you've asked, learn about your reviewers. If they're experts, you can use words that are more common in your broad fields. If they're non-experts, you should use more general language. And one thing you can do is show some friends that are similar to your reviewers. So if you're, let's say you're an inorganic chemist and you're applying for a general chemistry award, find people who are in chemistry but not in your subfield, so not from your research group, and ask them to review it. Or maybe it's a little broader. You're in women and gender studies and you're applying for a humanities award. Find people who you know who are in the humanities more broadly and see if they understand what you're saying. And even the broadest, maybe you're applying for an award that's, say, for women in the academy. So find friends who are in all sorts of other fields and see if they can read it. If they don't understand something, neither will the reviewers. So basically, work together as a team. They can review for you, perhaps you can review for them. You'll all get awards. It'll be a very happy time in the future. So just as a brief summary of takeaways, avoid jargon when possible, but sometimes it's necessary. And in those situations, use jargon wisely. So include only really key terms and explain them clearly. And also, just as a general note, learning to write without jargon can help you communicate your work more to a broader audience, which is helpful not only in the specific award that you're applying for, but also, in terms of creating, translating your work to people, developing broader impacts from your work. It's really important that you're able to explain it to a broader audience. And also, in many cases, it can help you understand it better. It can help you kind of reshape how you're thinking about your work, and how you can, our understanding often comes from our language. And so